Welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 190, we welcome award-winning and Billboard-charting jazz vocalist Nicole Henry. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host. I'm here this morning in 818 Studios with my producer.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 190 of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, I hope and trust, I know that you had a fantastic weekend, and welcome to Monday, and we're into February, and here we are.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're so excited, too, with our special guest, singer Nicole Henry. And I probably should say singer and actress, because I know you've done commercials and all kinds of work. But anyway, Nicole Henry, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Truly. You bet. And we're going to get into more about, your journey and your music. But for some reason, we always love to say happy Monday and welcome to your week. And we love to be, supporters of your journey, of your life. And many people have told us, they listen to the show while they're driving, while they're cooking. One even said they like to clean to our show. And I go, that is awesome.
No, I listen to our episodes while grilling. I'll put on podcast and I'm cooking, getting the grills going, got my Weber kettle happening. And oh, yeah.
There you go.
Well, and especially today with some of Nicole's music. So Nicole, we'll, have you send us some audio so we can drop that into the feed so people can learn more about you if they haven't heard you. Of course, if any of our listeners do listen to jazz, they've probably heard you lately because this latest single is really, it's really hot. And so
thank you.
That's been really great. So, Nicole, let's just get right in. And I wanted to say first off that, we're happy to have you on, honored that you took the time because you are a busy vocalist. You are touring. Oh, and by the way, I noticed you're going to be in Florida coming up, so we're going to have to talk because I had an idea. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now in terms of this song being so hot, because it's like last I looked, which has been about a week, it was like number 8 on the charts. This new tune, "Feeling Good."
Right. Well, so I put this CD out, released a CD on October 15th, both "Feeling Good" and then just this week, so if this is earlier in January, earlier in January, I released a new single as well called "Your Smiling Face," which is a fabulous tune by James Taylor. So the album, yes, has done so well, and from number 8, it jumped to number 4 on the U.S. jazz radio charts, and it's just beyond my expectations. I wake up and every week when the chart comes out, I'm like, I start from the bottom. I'm like, it's okay if it dropped. It's, it's gone higher than I ever would have imagined. And it's, it's really, it just goes, it's a reminder to me that, you just got to do things and put things out. And if you're doing things happen. It's really been a blessing. And I have to say, it is my favorite CD to date. This is my 8th CD. And I had an opportunity to record this with my band in Miami, where I've been based since the 90s when I went to college at the University of Miami, originally from Philadelphia. And started my career here in Miami since 2001. So it's 20 years. It's hard to believe that's what I'm celebrating. So this is my 8th CD. And actually, I decided to record the CD because COVID was happening and I was working on another CD, but that label is out of town. And I was like, you know what? I got to put something out. So in May of 2020, I went to my band. I was like, we have some great arrangements. Let's get in the studio and just finish recording more songs. So we rounded out a CD that I already had a couple singles, like you mentioned, "Feeling Good." And we recorded it and literally put it out like 4 months later. And it just goes to show sometimes not putting too much thought into something, just, that's the way to do it.
Exactly. Yes. I think there is something about just doing what's yours to do and letting go of the results because, you and I both know you can't control how the public is going to respond.
Not whatsoever. Yeah, yeah. So that's been a blast. But at the same time that the CD came out in October, maybe 2 months before I knew the release was coming out, I was invited back to a stage production that had gotten cut off due to COVID. And that stage production happens to be in South Florida, where I've spent my COVID time, because I was in New York, and I said, well, why stay in New York during this time? So
Right, because you're not performing, you mean?
Yes, and
Right.
at the time it was the epicenter of everything going
Yes,
on. So
exactly.
I put everything in storage and slid back down to Miami. But this production was a musical production, a world premiere of this Broadway level musical called A Wonderful World. And it's the life of Louis Armstrong. So we are in our last week of this 7-week stretch of putting up this production. And it's been just wonderful. It's truly, as I kind of slipped and mentioned, a Broadway level performance. I think they have big hopes for it. It's just incredible. In fact, I can send you a link, but yeah, it's just top notch all the way. Lighting, staging, directing, dancing, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I would imagine so many artists, musicians, I'm good friends with a videographer, because of not being able to do much, during the COVID time, people are so hungry to work and to be about their craft. And I wondered if that energy was present in this show. Like, do you feel people are working together easily, or what's the feeling?
That's a good point. Yes, I think we all are grateful to just be working, and to just continue to have our full cast, because of course we've had to take a few breaks due to COVID. So we're just every day testing and hoping, and it's really unified us. We're looking out for community. We're like, nope, we can't go have dinner. We can't go out to a club. We can't go to a bar, because me and my family, my stage crew, all 80 of us between the cast and the crew and everything, we have to take care of each other and the production team and show up. So I think in that sense, it has given us a sense of more community responsibility, or taking care of one another. And we are, especially with Broadway closing down here and there, different shows. So yes, it has given us another perspective and a sense of gratitude and responsibility, for sure.
Yes, I bet. Well, I was speaking with another friend who I think Monique McDonald.
I know that name.
Oh, Monique? Yeah, she was an opera singer. She actually has another show on our channel. And I met her through Unity of New York years ago. And her show is called A Magnetic Voice. And Dave is also the producer of that show. But she, went through a stint of not singing at all. Now she's a wonderful coach and works with people all around the country. But she had toured in Israel and all these other things. And of course, with COVID, nothing. But she is quite, I don't think she's ever been busier in her career, because she shifted. So, and that has been an interesting time for all of us. And in thinking about you recording and the success you're having, I love that for all of you, because the band is tight, man. I mean,
that's a good record.
That is a good record.
It's such a good record.
Thank you.
And we'll have a link to that in our show notes, of course. This is the Time to Love Again album, correct?
Yes. Oh, thank you. That's right.
So good.
That's the title.
Well, and Nicole, I don't want to forget to say that you've actually had jazz awards really from around the world. I mean, I loved that in Japan you had Best New Jazz Artist, and I wondered if you had toured there, and I wanted to hear about the receptivity they had to your music.
Sure. From album number 1, 2004, the first CD was called The Nearness of You.
Yes,
and I put this album out. Same thing. It was like people were asking me in Miami. I had just started my career singing jazz like in 2002. And people were asking me, do you have a CD? Do you have a CD? Because here, based in Miami, a lot of tourists. And they said, oh, do we want to take you home? And so I... Well, no, but you know what, guys? Let's record something, because
but maybe I should,
keep asking me. Yes. So I recorded this CD. We went to a club on South Beach that we performed at, and just did a live recording in the daytime, without an audience. Anyway, that CD came out 2003, and then we sold so many in like a short period of time that I went back and added more songs and made a full CD and got a distribution deal. I started my own label because, of course, people were like, "Who are you? Why should I put you on my label?"
Exactly.
I was like,
I
okay, I guess I'll
understand
start
that.
my own label. And then I got an email from Japan. I think he found it on CD Baby.
Oh, yes.
And for like a year, I thought this person was a woman because the name was Shu Owama. And and then when I went to Japan, because the CD was doing so well, and when I would find out he's a he when I go meet him in Japan, he was like, the CD's doing well. Let's buy some posters, and the CD got to number 2 on the vocal jazz charts there, and then got me named Best New Jazz Artist. Random, and it was funny. I lived at that time on a studio on Ocean Drive in Miami Beach, and was a block and a half away from the post office. And like once or twice a week, literally, I would be walking to the post office with a box of 160 CDs to ship to Japan. And it was just
wow,
wild. Here I am in my little apartment, big in Japan. And it's wild. It's wild.
And
Life
it's
crazy.
really interesting because to me, jazz I grew up on jazz. I've always been a great lover of jazz. And it almost seems like sometimes in other countries, and back in the day, a lot of artists would go to Europe because they were more appreciated. There's certainly African American artists; they were more accepted and supported there. And I always find that interesting when some of our jazz music, which is like American folk music to a degree, is more honored sometimes worldwide. So I thought that was awesome about your career, and your success. And I can imagine you just like walking with this box of CDs.
It's wild. It's wild. And it's true. I think just the way that jazz was spread throughout the country. In fact, with this show that I'm doing, A Wonderful World, it talks about Louis Armstrong.
Yes.
And in I want to say 50s, he was the ambassador of jazz.
Yes.
And went from America to countries all over the world, obviously, and spread jazz. And, even with the different wars that we had, World War I and World War II, jazz, particularly, because World War I is too early, but
World War II, though.
And the Korean War, the music was out there and spread out there. So I think, obviously not absence makes the heart grow fonder, but what's that called? When it's a rarity, sometimes things become more popular and not taken for granted. So in Europe and Japan particularly, jazz is so appreciated. And I've been to Japan 17 times since 2005. Wow. And it's really one of my favorite countries. It's just their reverence for life is when it comes to gardens and way of life and the feng shui. It's just amazing. There's this word that they have even now. I can't think of it, about when you have a meeting, you show up early and that's on time because it gives you a moment to just decompress. And there's like a word for that. The gardens, it's just it's a magical place. But, every country has its beauty.
Yes, there is a strong intention in culture. I've studied the Japanese culture for many years, and I find it to be very beautiful.
Exactly.
I've learned a lot, and yes. Well, and I wondered if during that time, because one of the reasons I really wanted you on the show is, and we've had several jazz artists on, and I think life on the spiritual journey is lived a lot like jazz, where
very cool. That's a good point.
Where somebody takes over for a while and we sit back, and then it's time to come back in, and maybe it goes a different direction than we're thinking, but it's all part of the song, and we're going to ride this tune out, till the end.
Beautiful.
And I just wonder about your spiritual journey and how that's informed, your path and your career and all of that.
Yeah, I think like everybody, we don't know, like a lot of people, and I can speak for myself, we don't exactly know where that nugget came from because our life is, of course, a culmination of so many influences. And I'm different than my sister who was raised in the same household. You know what I mean? Very different as far as our spirituality and our perspective on life. Right. And I think I remember what your question was, but spirituality is it's everything to me. Mm-hmm. It is everything because I wake up every morning with a sense of gratitude and perfection, that everything is perfect. Everything is what it needs to be. And I'm going to accomplish whatever life has on my to-do list, but also be ready for anything. And that's bad or good, but I believe it's mostly good. So, I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. My grandfather was actually a preacher. I don't think I ever heard him preach, because by the time I, was born, he wasn't preaching anymore. But my grandparents, of course, like so many, I think, children of that time. I was born in the 70s. My grandparents were very steeped in the Bible and Christianity and Jesus and the Lord. And we went to Sunday school when we went to visit our grandparents in Memphis, Tennessee, or Columbus, Ohio. We learned the books of the Bible, went to Sunday school. And then growing up, we didn't really start going to church regularly until I was in maybe second or third grade. But that was a good time, my parents thought it was a good time to start regularly going. And we went just about every Sunday. I sang in the church choirs.
I bet.
And so, and so I really, and I happened to be raised in a Methodist church. And I'm grateful for that, because while there was talk of being a sinner, there was not a guilt placed upon you, where I think some religions in the Christian faith do weigh heavy on that. And I grew up, I was okay with, that reference, but it never really I'm grateful that it never really overshadowed my entire spirituality. But I understand the concept, and I understand how we need to look at ourselves as servants of the greatness that we have been born into in this world, and particularly in this country. So spirituality is really everything to me. But and I think my parents' influence, my mom never accepting excuses, no, what's, so there's a lot of things that have influenced me. But more than anything, I'm just so grateful, and I could start crying right now because, I'm so grateful for my perspective on life, and that I just am able to see the beauty in everything and go with the flow of life and appreciate the simplicity and find and know how to get myself out of any rut that I might be in, or out of any dark place. Fortunately, I feel like I've been able to find ways out of any of those places and never linger in those places too long. And I can't even tell you the last time I've been in that place for longer than 10 minutes, and that to me is a gift. Yeah.
Yes,
and I know not
absolutely.
everybody has that. Yeah.
Yes. And in your mind, as you were speaking there at the end, I was thinking, and I think your music helps bring people out of that. And it was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. I can't listen to your song Feeling Good and not feel good at the end. And the other night I was cooking and singing with you at the top of my lungs. And my son, we were kind of dancing around, and he's a little musician too. He's a violinist. He comes in and goes, that's really good.
No way. I love that.
So yeah, we had a great time. So I think let's end the first half. Nicole, can you share the audio with us? Not at this moment, but you can give it to Dave.
Of course.
After, we'd love to end this first half with that new hit single, Feeling Good by Nicole Henry. So we'll be back right after this song and these brief messages.
Flying high, you know what I feel. Sun in the sky, you know what I feel. Breeze drifting by, you know what I feel. It's a new dawn, a new day, a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. a new day, a new life for me. And I'm feeling good, yeah. Dragonfly in the sun, you know what I mean. Butterflies having fun, you know what I mean. To sleep in peace when day is done. It's a new world, a bold world, a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Stars, when you shine, you know what I feel. Scent of the pine, you know what I feel. Freedom is mine. It's a new world, a bold world, a new life for me. Oh, it's a new dawn, a new day, a new life for me. Oh, it's a new dawn, a new day, a new life for me. And I'm feeling good, yeah. A new dawn, a bold world, a new life. A new dawn, a new day, a new life. And I'm feeling, yes, I'm feeling good.
And welcome back. We are glad you're with us. And of course, we're really happy and honored to have Nicole Henry with us today. And I hope you were grooving to that song, Feeling Good. I love grooving around the house with that, driving to it. I just made a new playlist called Spiritual Badass, and it's on there. I think it's on,
Love
it's actually, that song too is on a playlist I just made, Nicole, for a class I'm teaching, I taught last month rather, called Prosperity for You. And part of prosperity really is how you feel. You know, a lot of times we think prosperity is what we have, but in fact, prosperity really is knowing, is you know, it's a way of living, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of feeling. And I think sometimes we are a victim to life rather than creating the life we want. And so part of my teaching is always about us taking responsibility for our journey. And so sometimes we have to bring in new thoughts, new energies, new beliefs, new ideas. And one of the ways I do that is by creating and gathering together, rather, music that really supports whatever new idea I'm bringing in. And so your song, Feeling Good, comes between two other songs with the same title called Money Is Coming to Me. So there's Money Is Coming to Me, Feeling Good, and then Money Is Coming to Me by a different artist. And
I've never heard that.
Yeah, that's a great tune. The tune Money Is Coming to Me, the one I'm thinking of right now, is written by a guy named Eddie Watkins Jr. He's also been on our show, and he was really popular during the Motown, R&B. He was a bass player, and he's played with everybody. I mean, right? Gladys Knight. I mean, It does to everybody.
Yeah.
And he had a real journey with his spirituality and recovery, and is now, really using his music. A lot of times he'll go to different spiritual centers and do workshops where he writes affirmations for people in song. And so anyway, that song Money Is Coming to Me is a little bit of an affirmation. So we should put that in the show notes too, Dave, just for fun. That's a great tune. But anyway, Nicole, your tune, Feeling Good, just keeps finding its way into my life in different playlists. But then the other tune that I've been really grooving on is your Moon River. And I think that was recorded, I want to say like 2007, 2008, somewhere around
That's
there.
right. That's exactly right. It was actually supposed to be on that album that came out in 2008, recorded in 2007, but we didn't release it until maybe 10 years later, or
Oh, you're kidding.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because the CD was just too long, but I still love that song so much.
I
And was
love
like,
that.
oh my
So
gosh,
it's a
we gotta put this
classic.
out. Yeah, so it's like the addendum to my second CD. Yes.
Well, what are your inspirations, Nicole, music wise? Do you have people that like you've really studied over your life, or that you go back to also? I'd just be curious to know that.
Yes, you know what? There really isn't one particular. Somebody asked me this question Saturday. There isn't one particular pathway that I want to take, or one particular artist, but I grew up listening to Aretha Franklin, so I just love her honesty, the soul, and I grew up listening to her Amazing Grace album. So I can't think of a better album to present to a spiritually directed singer, growing up to that, because when she sang, it was like she was speaking some sort of truth every time.
I agree, totally.
Yeah. And so I loved just how much she felt her lyrics. But then I guess that really goes to a lot of soul music in the 60s, 70s, anytime really, blues, Then when I fell into jazz in 2001 and just started going crazy about researching Nancy Wilson, Sarah Vaughan, Carmen McRae.
Oh, Carmen McRae, yes.
I love her song choices
Me
and
too.
her delivery. Just with ease and emotion and depth. And then I was influenced by Whitney Houston, because whenever I would sing in middle and high school, sing competitions, whatever, just to get an opportunity to sing, I would always sing a Whitney Houston song because they were just gorgeous, soaring, big,
and you
epic
can,
ballads.
and your range can handle it.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that over the last 2 years, I actually have a Whitney Houston show that my great friend Will Nunziata created this one-woman show for me. So I'm telling stories about my life and then growing up and then relating it to Whitney Houston songs. So it's called I Want to Dance with Somebody. So that's been really fun.
Oh, yes. I think I saw something about that. I didn't know it until I said, now I want to make sure I know enough about Nicole. And I saw that. I was like, go girl. I bet you can nail those tunes. Have you ever heard that version Carmen McRae does with Harry Connick called Please Don't Talk About Me When I'm Gone?
No. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I'm writing this down. No.
Well, it was on one of Harry Connick's first albums. I think it was on Harry Connick 20.
Okay.
And, he was so hot. That was when he was just busting out in New York at that time. And, it's funny that you're in Miami now, because I had in my mind you were based in New York, but then you said you went back to Miami when COVID hit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I wondered, have you come across Barry Gibb in Miami?
I don't know. I can't recall ever meeting him personally.
Okay,
I've seen him. I want to say I've seen him perform live once. My friends play with him. I know his musical director very well. In fact, we've written a song together. One of my best friends sings background for him, and one of my old vocal coaches does as well. So I know a lot. I know most of his band, or half of them. Yeah.
Well,
but I hear he's just a beautiful person.
That's what I've heard too. And he did so much composing and stuff. He's worked with so many people. He worked with like Dionne Warwick, with Barbara Streisand. I mean, he's really written for a lot of neat people. Well, we're big fans, obviously, and I love that you are on a spiritual journey. And I wondered if your music is more just because you have larger audiences, do you still do some singing in spiritual centers?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
I really enjoy it too. Usually I sing at churches from time to time. You know, if I'm invited to sing at a church, I'll do that. In New York, I was singing at the Unity where
Yes.
we met, right? Yes,
Right.
Unity
Unity of
of
New
New
York.
York.
Uh-huh.
Yep, at Symphony Space. Oddly enough, I lived 2.5 blocks from there, or 3 blocks from there. So that was just a wild thing to, and that was one of the only, I was singing at Unity on the Bay in Miami since 2001. And believe it or not, I was the singer in church 2001, that Sunday after September 11th. And that
Oh,
was
wow.
my introduction to singing and,
Wow.
having that task to heal hearts or, to inspire people. And I'll never forget that. And what a duty it is. It just reminds you of the responsibility that we have as people with a microphone, what we need to do, what we're called to do and what we have the opportunity to do. And it's a pretty massive but energizing responsibility to be able to share what we feel is a positive message to people. And I thank God for it every time. One of my favorite places to be is to be looking at the back of a church, which means I'm singing on stage at some point and with people in front of me.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that. And I do believe music heals. I also believe you can be singing a completely secular song and somebody be completely blessed as if they were in church because of the energy, because of the connection. See, to me, music is a healing in and of itself. And I believe true artists are somehow picking something up from the ethers and relaying it in a way that maybe couldn't even be done in words, which is really something for me to say because my job is words. But I know that when I'm speaking at any various venue or my new community in Tampa, that sometimes what people are going to take home is the music, but it's all energetic. So I feel there's something that it was another reason I wanted to talk to you because there's something that comes through in your music that is more than the notes and the words, and it is an energy. And so your connection with life, your connection with the musicians, your spiritual connection with God, with all that is, the God of your understanding, comes through. And I do believe that's one of the things that is felt in your music.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And some of my favorite reviews are like one time, I think it was a publication in Jazz of France or something like that. They picked up on the first album saying her joie de vivre comes through.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's true. And Broadway World just did a couple reviews just saying something about just the pure joy that is felt. And it's so true. I love, even if it's a sad song, like you said, Moon River, but Fly Me to the Moon. I mean, this, feeling good, Wild as the Wind, Love and Affection, which is a song by Joan Armatrading that I've just always loved.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Your Smiling Face. I mean, there's just, how do you sing about these things? And even things like Is It a Crime? It's about a woman that still loves the person that is not with her and with another person right now. But it's like, is it so bad that I still love you and have this passion for you? And as pathetic as it may seem, it's just, it's honest and it's
that's what I was going to say. Well, one of the reasons I love jazz is that it brings us rather messages about life. I mean, I love that, you can have a jazz song about a tree, you can have a song about a sunset. And all pop music right now is about booty. It's about getting laid, honey, and big butts. And I'm like, really? Is this what we're actually singing about? And so the thing I love about jazz is I feel like it sings about love. It sings about life, about truth, and about, I can't think of jazz and not think of blues, too. And so, there's a real grittiness at times about jazz. And I think sometimes when we want to spiritualize everything, we forget, life is real. And sometimes life sends us, really tough things to handle. And I find comfort in jazz.
Yeah, that's really
in a different way than I do other genres. And I've studied classical music, and I grew up in a very musical household and all that. But jazz always holds a special place. It's like I always come back to it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You know what? You're right. There's an honesty about jazz, and it's just no BS. That's a beautiful observation. You know, I was thinking last night I was listening to, I'm an audiobook fiend right now. And I've been going through these things like in 3 or 4 days, like you said, and audio, podcasts and so forth.
And stuff. Yeah.
And I was I'm reading Richard Wright right now, his book, Black Boy, which is just phenomenal. And being an African American, I'm very sensitive to how we can repair what has happened in this world with regard to race and separation.
Yes.
And he was there was parts of his book I was clipping for bookmarks on the audiobook, and he talks about a necessary commonality that we all need to find as humans, and then having the courage to say what you feel, to find that you're not alone. And I think that music and literature has that opportunity, and in turn or down the road, podcasts and having conversations. We can heal the world through this. Because government and politics is not going to do it, but they can do it if they listen to conversations. If those of us who want to speak and want to fix and want to share, so there's but it's beautiful to think that there's this honesty in jazz. I appreciate you.
Well, and I think we are. I often mention you're not going to hear about it on the news, but healing is happening. Because, see, it doesn't sell copy to heal. What sells copy is, fear and blood. A guy who works for a newspaper literally said, my editor came to me and said, if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, this is the actual, I said, but it was actually said out loud. Yes, he said. So there is a lot of healing happening. There's more healing happening, I think, than not. The problem is we keep hearing about everything not. And so we get desperate and feel like, my God, what's going on? But yes, and I'm going to read that book. I don't know the book, so I'm definitely going to get it. Black Boy, you said, by Richard Wright.
Yes, he's a writer. He was born in the late 19-teens, probably like 1918.
Yeah, okay.
And it talks about growing up in the South, Mississippi and Arkansas, 1924, 1930s, and then him moving to Chicago. And I think in the end, he kind of teeters on communism, in the last chapter or two, because I think that's who he was at that time and what was going on in right now, I'm in the 1930s during the Depression with this book.
Yes.
And there's just 2 chapters left. But it's a really beautiful insight into what Black men and families went through
absolutely
at that time, and how horrible people treated Black people. How horrible that relationship was between whites and Blacks in the teens, 20s, and what that causes somebody to do, that terror.
It's like living in a war zone.
Yes. And imagine that in other countries, that we thank God in America, and it's a blessing. We need to remember how grateful, that we don't have to deal with war and bombing and gun, as it's in the streets, yes, guns, and unfortunately that's
right
everywhere. But
understood. But
like you said, that war, that terror of survival, of treatment, of life, living, and being able to take care of yourself. Yeah.
Well,
so it's,
yes, and I think you're right, and I think one of those commonalities, I'm just going to bring it back, is music. One of those commonalities. One time, I'll just say this real quick story. I was on a scuba diving trip in Honduras, and it was a weird situation because there had been a hurricane, and so we had to cancel the trip, and it was just me and one friend at this whole place. And so we got to know the people pretty well that were cooking for us. And I was like, I feel dumb sitting here and they're in the kitchen. Can I just come in the kitchen? And they started showing me how to hand make tortillas and everything. And anyway, and I saw this guitar sitting over in the corner, and I said, can I play that? And they were like, yeah. And so I picked it up, and one of the guys in really broken English says, "Do you know Bye Bye Miss American Pie?" And I go, yes.
Oh, how
And I'm
fun.
telling you, it was the kitchen staff who spoke no English, the guy who was my dive instructor and who took us on the diving tours, him and me and my friend who finally came into the kitchen also. We sat around and sang that. and I thought,
love it.
I thought, with nothing else could this have happened. And
That's
they knew,
amazing.
and they knew every word in English.
Oh my goodness.
And
That's
so
beautiful.
it was such a connection. And for years, I stayed connected with them. And it didn't matter if we agreed on every single thing. What mattered is that there was a moment.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was a moment of connection. And Nicole, I thank you for being with us. This is what I feel when I listen to your music, as I do feel connected. And it's interesting that you're on this week because our topic last week was on connection. And you help us feel connected to ourselves, to God, to each other, and certainly to you and with your passion and your talent. So we're happy to be supporters of you and your journey, and happy you could be here. And we are going to end with another one of your tunes, if you don't mind, the Moon River, that I tend to play over and over. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. And may this hopefulness of this song inspire us all. It's just a beautiful tune. Thank
Exactly. Thank you again, dear friends, for joining us. As always, we're so happy you take time to join us on your spiritual journey, and blessings on the journey, dear friend. We'll see you next week.
Crossing you in style someday. Oh, dream maker, you heartbreaker. Wherever you're going, I'm going your way. Such a lot of world to see. We're after the same rainbows and waiting around the bend. My huckleberry friend, river and me. someday. Oh, dream maker, you heartbreaker. Wherever you're going, I'm going your way. Two drifters off to see the world. There's such a lot of world to see. We'll be after that same rainbow's end that's waiting around the bend. My huckleberry friend, Moon River. And
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2022 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.